So welcome everyone. Today we're going to be talking and doing a demonstration around Tai Chi and Qigong. And this is part of our Tuesday to Your Health monthly webinar series. So welcome everyone, and get comfortable and get situated. So give me a moment here. I want everyone to settle in. And what I'm hopeful for this evening is that we can spend a little bit of time exploring some of the health benefits, both from an intellectual perspective as well as from an actually experiential place. And my name is Brad Jacobs, and we do these monthly webinars. This is typically the second Tuesday of the month. As many of you know, I run a medical practice out of Cavallo Point called Blue Wave Medicine. And part of this practice includes really a bit of an experiential component to, in our medical practice, of people living their best life through doing things such as mindful movement. And this martial art is really an example of mindful movement. Some of you may practice yoga. Some people might practice, mindful walking or even running. There's lots of different ways to be mindful through movement. What I like to call this is really Tai Chi and yoga are really moving meditations rather than, or active meditation rather than sitting meditation. And that's really what this speaks into, is the ability for us to be able to really have a meditation that's ongoing, that we can do daily, that can actually invigorate us at the physical level as well as at the spirit, heartfelt, and psychological level as well. So let me just speak to a little bit about the benefits of Tai Chi. It's been looked at for the past several decades in Western civilization, and of course it's been examined for hundreds, if not really thousands of years through outside of Asia and China in particular. If you think about martial arts in general, there's many different types of martial arts. And within China, there's Chinese martial arts, northern style, southern style. And there's what we call external facing martial arts and more internally oriented martial arts. Tai Chi would fall into the category of an internal oriented martial art. It has martial applications, meaning for fighting, it has an application that way. But much of the intention and energy is directed towards our internal environment and cultivating our own energy, our own chi, what we call chi, internally within us for its healing properties, rather than more external martial art, punching that you think about, like long fist, Shaolin. There's many types of external oriented martial arts that are much more sort of explosive, if you will. Whereas Tai Chi, Qigong practice are much more about internal facing and much softer, but of course can have a strike, but in the practice, it's done much more slowly. So some of the medical things that have been looked at, and particularly more recently, are looking at balance, for example, because imagine, we're practicing here and we might be up on one leg and holding ourselves here and then coming back down. And that practice, particularly in the elderly, is really helpful for balance. So it's been looked at to reduce fall risk. As a result, hip fractures that happen from elderly with falls and just falls in general can lead to head trauma and bleeding injuries, etc. So fall risk being one, and balance in general, improving balance. It's also been looked at for, not surprisingly, issues around that may modulate the stress. So think of blood pressure and high blood pressure. It's been shown to reduce high blood pressure. It's even been looked at for memory, and looking at folks as we get older, people get cognitive decline, and it's been looked at to modulate the speed with which people have cognitive decline. So, Alzheimer's, if you will, but that prevention of memory loss. It's also been looked at looking at arrhythmias. It's been even looked at looking at diabetes and glucose control, because it is an exercise. And beyond that, it has these healing properties that I mentioned that maybe affect stress, that may affect sleep, that may affect internal awareness therefore affect appetite. By being more physically embodied, you're noticing your body. So it's been looked at even for things like diabetes. So there's really a long list: cardiovascular, endocrine, musculoskeletal, cognitive, that it affects. So no surprise, because it's a system that is really meant to be a whole system for the whole body at multiple levels. So that's really been quite interesting, fascinating. And, I would look at it as something that helps people age more gracefully. So as we get older, people can, you can go and do the gym and lift weights and go run, but to be a bit more mindful of how you walk through the world, how you carry yourself, how you are more aware in the present moment of how you interact with other people, what your thoughts might be that are running through your head. All those things help vitality and a feeling of fulfillment and contentment as we notice how we interact with other people. And that is really part of meditation, if you will, sitting meditation, but also moving. So you can notice your breath while you're doing this movement. It's very complicated, to be actually moving your hand and thinking about where your body belongs, and at the same time noticing your breath. And that very present moment awareness is a practice in of itself that actually allows us to become more aware of how we interact in the world or interact within our own mind. So that's really a bit of an overview, thinking about moving meditation, such as martial art, such as in the specific example, Tai Chi. So I just want to pause for a little bit before we transition over to any experiential. If people have any questions, feel free to there's a Q&A box there, and you can feel free to put questions in there, and I'm happy to address those as we go. There's many different types of Tai Chi, many different families, often by the different families it's described as. There's a Yang style, there's a Chen style, there's a Wu style. There's really a lot of different styles. Each one has a different flair, different emphasis, really because they've come from a different lineage, different family tradition. And in martial arts, as many of you may know, the lineage is very important as it relates to both what the style might be, as well as really what some of the emphasis might be in certain areas. So Fernanda, you raised your hand. So if you can go maybe put something into down the bottom there, you'll see the Q&A. You can actually type something in the Q&A. What I'd like to do then, while we're waiting, in case anyone else has any other questions, would be to actually just do a little bit of a warm-up. And I'd like to start with the warm-up by just starting down on our feet. Let me adjust the camera here so you can see that. And what I'd like us to do is really just start with, at the feet level, start with wiggling our toes, and then really going up to the ankle and turning the ankle in one direction, just to warm up the body. So we're going to go one direction, and then we're going to go the other direction. You may hear some cracks and pops, which is nice, opening up the tendons and the joint space. Now we're going to do the other side. So we go one direction. Hopefully everyone is standing up right now and sort of following suit from a standing position. And then you go the other direction. And then after this ankle area in the foot, now we're going to move down to our knees. Okay. So often it's more comfortable having them completely together, but you can have your feet a little bit separate if you'd like. But when you do the knees, I want the knees actually touching. We're going to go down and let the knees touch one another. We're going to support them with our hands, and we're going to go in one direction. Circular. Good. Now let's go the other direction. Good. Now we're going to come back up. Now we'll move to the hips. So we'll start off with a large movement of the hip, almost like the hula hoop, twisting in one direction. And then we'll go the other direction. Then coming back to center. And I'd like to do right at this point is a smaller movement of the hip. So what we'll do is put our hands behind our back here, and then we'll just do small movements, small rotation on the front, sort of seated rotation. So I'll go from the side, our feet are together, knees are together, and we're rotating. We're going from, we're really drawing a circle, if you will, small circle. And then we go the other direction. Good. Now we'll move to the shoulder. Open up the shoulder, it's like doing a backstroke. You notice I'm twisting the upper body, the front body facing forward, from the hips forward. There's a little bit of rotation there, but the feet are forward, and you're just rocking to there. That's about as much rotation you have, and you're opening and back. I'm allowing the bicep to brush by the ear, reach all the way back, and come back forward. And then we'll go the other direction, coming forward. Again, having the bicep come by, brushing relatively close to the ear and back down. Really should open up this whole space in the back, the upper trapezius muscles. You can feel opening and even rubbing against the scapula. And then we'll do the other side. I feel along the elbow, I feel around the neck, I feel on the upper back. Then we're going forward. Now, some of you have participated in this before. We're going to do this, it's a bit more complicated. We're going to bring both arms up, and we're going to bring one hand forward, the other one behind us. And we're just going to rotate like that. Both hands up and back to the top. So you can see I'm rotating my body, my rear shoulder is going back, coming back to center. That shoulder moves to the front, and you come back up. And so if you feel comfortable, then we'll do that. Hands going both directions. Usually when we're in person, people are laughing and fumbling around because it is a complicated maneuver. And doing it from the side, I'll show you again. One hand's forward, one hand's back. Keep rotating like that. Feel comfortable, go like that. Really opens up the whole chest, the whole neck area. Now we'll move to the neck area. And what I'd like us to do now is simply rotate. So we'll do rotations, going one direction. As you notice the rotation here, my chin comes all the way down, then I roll over to the ear towards this shoulder, going back, but there's some extension as I move back so I don't shorten the neck and cause pinching and pain. Down, rolling over to the ears, touching the other shoulder, not really touching but rolling towards it, coming down, the chin dropping towards the chest, and continuing that rotation. Now we're going to do rotation laterally. So I'll look behind myself. I'm going to rotate over this shoulder, looking behind and twisting. So I start with twisting the base, the foundation of the waist. I turn the torso, the chest, the shoulders. My hands are on my side here. And then I finally am with looking behind myself and looking straight back with my eyes and coming back forward and going the other direction now. I'm coming forward and going the other direction. Coming forward, other direction, coming forward. Great. You shake it out a little bit, rub our hands. So what we've done here is we've gone through the ankles, our knees, our hips, shoulders, neck. Now we're going to finish off with our hands and our eyes to sort of bring energy out through the external aspects of our system, our hands, and then out through our eyes. So by doing that, we'll rub our hands together, cover our eyes, take a big breath in, and then exhale, covering our eyes still, and release, rubbing our hands again to generate energy that comes out through the palm energy coming out through the hand. We're rubbing them together. And then we put them over our eyes, our palms over our eyes. Take a breath in. And then exhale. We're bringing the warm energy from our palms into our eyes to generate and enliven the eyes, which represents the external, the end manifestation or external sort of terminus energy from the liver, which emanates through the eyes. And the liver, from Chinese medicine perspective, relates to a lot of, in gallbladder in particular, a lot of decision making. Emotionally, it could around anger and rage, even decision making for the gallbladder in particular, so envy, many other sort of that sort of emotions. So we're trying to calm that and get energy and revitalize that liver. Then we rub our hands again. We're going to now pull on our ears. The ears, the organ that sort of emanates and terminates at the ears, and from a Chinese medicine perspective, is the kidneys. And so from there, and a lot happens around the kidney area. People can have low back issues related to the kidney. People, and the emotion related to that is fear. The element might be is considered water. And so we're going to stimulate the ears as well. Interesting and fascinating item that I noted while I was going through medical schools, several classes of antibiotics, particularly immunoglycans, immunoglycoside antibiotics like gentamicin, for example, which are intravenous antibiotics, have toxicities that affect both the kidney and the ear for hearing, ototoxicity and nephrotoxicity, toxicity to the kidneys and the ears. And I always asked while in med school and training, why those particular organs? And no one ever could give me a reason. They would say, well, it would concentrate in the kidney and on its way out, that can cause toxicity. The ears, I never got a clear explanation. But from a Chinese medicine perspective, I find it fascinating that the kidney organ, or kidney official, as we call it, actually terminates out of the ear. So from a Chinese medicine perspective, there's no wonder why both those organs would be affected from this antibiotic. Pretty interesting. Okay, so why don't we transition and just practice a bit of a movement. This is a pretty straightforward movement. We call it silk reeling. And the reason it's called silk reeling is that the energy that you're putting into this movement and generating is one at which, imagine there's a cocoon, and that cocoon has a thread of silk that you're grabbing onto, and you're pulling that silk with enough tension that you're able to draw a single thread of silk away from the cocoon without breaking it, and also enough tension that you can actually draw the thread. So that's the energy and intention behind the movement. The movement's a simple movement. It's simply this movement. So it's basically broken down as one movement going this direction, the other one going this direction. And then combined, they're going in opposite directions, it appears, right? And at any moment in time, you can see they're opposing, where palms down, palms up, and you get this rotation. I'm not just simply, notice what I'm not doing. I'm not simply doing my arms. It's not this, right, where there's no energy coming through the body, where it's simply coming from the arm. But what we want to be doing is drawing from the ground, ideally, drawing up through the legs, through the pelvis, and then up through the torso and out through the arm. So in essence, the energy emanates from down here outward. It's not just here, but it's pushing off the leg first. So with that movement in mind, I'm pushing off here as I turn. I'm turning, there's tension in my glutes. I'm pushing off with my foot as I simply do this motion. Even before I do it, with the intention that I'm going to do that motion, the initial impulse comes from the foot, from the leg into the glute. That's the initial, that tightens first before anything happens up here. So that's the intention. Let's just start with that, where I'm starting to turn here, and I'm noticing a tension here in my hamstring, my quad, down my calf muscle, my feet, and then I'm turning and coming back. So, and I'll do this facing you from the side view, just so you can see that. Turning, coming this way. There's a rotation here. The rotation starts from the shoulder. It's not me just turning my wrist, but it comes from the shoulder. and then it's just there's a scooping sensation, or I'm pulling back, I'm drawing in, it's engaging my lat muscle to draw back in, and pulling inward, rotating back to center, and then turning again. So I'm starting to turn, and then it extends outward. So doing it from a front view, we're turning here, starting off the leg again, turning. It's a very simple move, but it's more complicated than it appears. What I tend to like to do is drop down to more of a crouched position, keeping one hand centered here just to practice. Coming up, turn, my front leg, if you can see, my foot turns to open to allow this turn. You can also stay like this. It's a little bit more closed, just fine. Or you can turn and open with your foot, come forward more, come back. And then you notice as I draw back, my foot comes back too. So as part of a practice, to stay on what we call a horse stance, with both feet facing somewhat forward, and from the side view, it's rather like this. We're not like this. We're not like that. It's nice and centered. Your legs are dropping. Some shoulders ideally over your hips. And however far down you feel comfortable going. For me right now here, so we're turning, rotating, coming back. So let's just try that. Now let's try the other side. This one starts moving, facing the other direction, coming backward, back to center. Turning, back to center. Now the other side, back to the original side. Now let's notice our breath. Now we have this motion down. I'm exhaling as I come in. Sort of inhale as I rise up, and I inhale. And I exhale as I go out. And I inhale as I come back in. Drawing in, breathing in, and then exhaling as I go out. Let's do the other side. Inhaling as I come in. Exhaling as I go out. And if you get tired, you can stand up a little higher. If your legs get a little bit tired. Now I'm going to go back to the other side. So we'll just practice alternating now. We'll watch it come back to center. This one rises up and turns. And back to center. This one rises up and turns. And come back to center. Great. So that first exercise is really trying to break it down into just learning one side, then the other side. And then you notice we did one and one, and one and one. Once we understand this pretty well, we'll do it actually at the same time. This will come, start moving, and then they both start going. There's also the reverse. So there's this feet, which is really the reverse. I'm coming down, going out, coming back in. Down, outward. And it's just twisting like it's a spiral. So from here, going down, and you can see the twisting. It's not just the wrist, it's coming from the shoulder. It's really coming from the torso, which is really stemming from down in the root coming up. But the energy is coming twisting. So you can see the hip twisting, the torso's tightening and twisting, it follows through and comes back to center. Coming down and back to center. And so the actually torso is firm during this and back. So that's a reversal of this. Again, coming here. Here, this twisting is coming from here as well, from the hip, from the pelvis. You get that twisting sensation, it's coming back. And then you forward, back, and then reverse. Exhaling as I go out, turning back. So let's practice the reverse, just to practice this different motion. So let's start with one side. We'll put one hand on our belly. We're going to drop down. So I'm going to spread my feet a little bit wider. It's more comfortable for me. I'm dropping downward. I'm exhaling as I come out. And then it's just wrapping sensation. Wrapping as I come back in. So almost like a towel. You're twisting it, trying to clean the towel. It's a dirty towel. You had it under the sink. Twisting or sponge. Twisting it, opening it. Twisting it, opening it, right? You twist, squeeze it out. Opens, the water flushes through, fills it up, squeezing it. Fills it up, squeezing it. That cleansing is what we're doing with our body. So, tightness, and then it wraps back up, opens down, back to center. Exhaling as we go out, inhaling as we come back in. Let's try the other side. And then back to the side. So why don't we think about combining these and see how that feels. So we're going to do both the left and right at the same time. It's like walking and chewing gum at the same time. So let's experiment with that. So we'll come back to center, find a center spot we feel comfortable in. I'm going to bring one arm up, and just this arm sort of sits in this direction facing upward to start. And then as soon as this reaches sort of its furthest reach out here is when they both start moving. So I'm coming here, turning, and now they're both moving. So now watch, they're both moving. Okay, you notice palms up, palms down. Turning, this is wound up. So it's unraveling the top one. This is palm down, palm up. Now, done properly, my eyes are following where I'm going. Now the breath here is a little different just because you have two arms going. So you just find a comfortable breathing pattern. And just notice your breath. Notice when your breath tightens. Notice when it becomes short. You may notice that it doesn't flow in and out smoothly. It may stutter, that breath pattern. Just notice. Now what we can do is we can add a little more to it. So for example, you can step, practice stepping behind, lifting the foot up. So now I'm on one foot as I transition. I'll step behind again. Actually, this time I'll step forward. practice that again. I'll step behind. I'll come out here, then step, and turn. Really trying to break it down so it's nice and slow. I'm going to step forward now. You can even just go onto one leg if you'd like. So drawing up. And I'm going to reach out slowly and step down. That part can be the most difficult, which is I come up, I'm drawing my energy all into one foot. My upper body is still rotating. And then as I drop down, rather than just dropping, I'm going to allow myself to slowly reach out past my center and slowly drop the leg. This is dropping down, and so this leg follows suit, and then lightly touch the ground. The beautiful thing about that is at night, middle of the night, walk into the bathroom, and you can practice slowly walking. So God forbid you stumble onto a child's or grandchild's toy or something you left on the floor and you don't see it. You'll get that awareness that as you touch the ground when you're walking, you can stop and pick up the foot and not trip, right? You can be on one leg and readjust. And hence my comment about fall risk being reduced amongst those that practice Tai Chi. You can see why that would be the case. This sort of touch, let go, touch, let go. I can just tap, oh, tap, oh. So that's a wonderful practice. Now let's come back to center and simplify things again. Just not moving the lower body, not stepping, not going on one leg. Just back to this, what seems easy, but it really is, as you are experiencing, hopefully, complicated series of motions, of movements. So then we'll come back to center. All right, so that's a little bit of experience of doing this motion here. What we can try and do now is a bit of the reverse. So let's try and just practice our reverse motion of that combined. So we're going to move both arms at the same time. So let's start with one arm, coming in like we did in the beginning, dropping down, coming back, rotating. The other side, rotating back to center, down, rotating back to center. Now let's move both. So we're going to, this arm's coming down, this one then also starts to move. Now I'm moving both arms. Now I'm noticing my breath. Trying to get a nice rhythmic pattern of my breathing. And let's practice stepping on this one as well. So I'm lifting my foot up, stepping behind. I'm going to step forward. Back to center. Now I'm going to step up on one leg to see what that feels like. Back down. And down to one leg, the other side, just to round out the body. See, to notice, does the left side work better than the right? Is the right side? Which side is a little bit better? Beautiful thing about the martial art practice is you do everything on both sides. And by doing that, you learn to become what we call in the Western world ambidextrous, but really you should be able to do these movements in both directions. Coming back to center. Big breath and exhaling. You know, we should be able to brush our teeth with our right hand or our left hand, comb our hair, eat a meal. It's really practicing both sides. And God forbid we have a stroke or something happens that impairs us cognitively or neurologically, we can compensate because we've been practicing, oh, I can put my leg here, I can put it here, my hand can go here, my hand can go there. I can grab things with my right hand or my left hand. And so that's what you're looking for, is that ability to use either hand. And that's what this beautiful practice does. You're seeing, and so you can start to notice, oh, my right hand doesn't work the same way, or my shoulder doesn't feel right. This one's more open and this one isn't. Oh, and this knee is off. And so those are the different attributes that you learn, and the different reasons to or motivations, I hope, to really inspire you to think about doing these sorts of practices. So I'd like to pause for a little bit just to see if anyone else has any questions. And if you want to speak, I can allow you to speak, or you can simply write a question. So you can raise your hand if you'd like in order to speak, or you can simply write a question if you have any. I guess I would start with, while we're waiting, maybe we can just ask. The first question I'd like to really ask is whether or not people have tried a martial art before. Would be one question I think that's interesting to ask people. So if anyone can sort of let me know. I see there's a couple of people here that have tried martial arts. So curious which martial arts people have tried, if they have tried them, and if they have their own experience about the challenges or sort of opportunities they've experienced. So one question was really about how do I learn more? There's in San Francisco, there's many opportunities to learn more. There's I can tell you a couple of teachers in the East Bay. There's a gentleman named Joseph Acqua, Acquah, Joseph Acqua, and he teaches. Is also in the city, lots of people. There's someone that I work with named Valerie Lee, Lee. She's also an acupuncturist who's excellent. And Marin, offhand, I don't really know any Tai Chi teachers, but I'm sure there are some. If anyone knows me, please let me know. There is a gentleman named Russ Munsell. He teaches Tai Chi, and I think he's at the Harbor Center at Strawberry Mill Valley. And as far as books, there's so many books, it's really hard to tell you where to start first. And really, Tai Chi is best learned experientially rather than through books and through YouTube, in my opinion. So I also learned, someone else commented, it's interesting. I also learned Filipino style eskrima when I was a teenager with a guy named Dan Inosanto down in Los Angeles. That was a long time ago. He was one of the colleagues of sort of, what they call the Kung Fu brothers with Bruce Lee. Dan and Osanto. And so I learned a bit of Jeet Kune Do, which came from Bruce Lee style, but through Dan and Osanto. And he did Kali and the Eskrima, which uses the so Russ is actually here in this workshop. So Russ commented that the name of the website you can go to if you're interested in learning more is called Dynamic Vitality, dynamicvitality.com. Dynamic Vitality, beautiful name, by dynamicvitality.com. I think my internet may have come in and out there, so let me just repeat that Russ has actually joined us this evening, and he's a Tai Chi instructor, and his website's called Dynamic Vitality if you're interested in learning more, dynamicvitality.com. So any other questions? Well, I would encourage you, if you're interested, to explore just the simple practice we did today. You can do on your own. And, you can start with simply just being in your body, noticing your posture, right? That's a sitting meditation, or even do it as a standing meditation. You can simply just stand and just notice your being, notice your posture, notice your breath. And if you have a few moments to do that, the beautiful thing of that is you'll probably also notice what sorts of thoughts may arise. Maybe some emotions show up, maybe different thoughts. And then you can simply notice that as you're just standing here breathing, noticing your posture, noticing your breath. And then next thing you know, you're distracted, you're thinking about something. What you got to do tomorrow, how boring this lecture is, what you forgot to do today, the argument you got in with someone, whatever, the mind gets distracted. And then you come back to your breath again, right? So that's a meditation, sitting meditation. You can do it standing as well. And the interesting thing, what you might, if you do this enough times, you'll start to notice themes, and you'll start to notice, often I'm embarrassed, or often I don't feel of value. I don't feel worthy. I feel like I'm an imposter. I'm not smart enough for these people. Like, you'll notice themes that start to underlie the wandering mind. It's normal for us to wander. So a lot of people feel that they get frustrated with meditation because their mind wanders, and that's all it does. And you're never, clear-minded. You're never reaching enlightenment, and you're never relaxed. But that's not actually what meditation is about. Meditation is about observing the mind, not clearing the mind. It's really about observing what the mind's doing, and then from that, sort of starts to unravel itself in its own beautiful way of wisdom. So you can do that just by standing, or like I said, I gave us a distraction. I gave us this nice movement here that actually serves as a couple of things. It serves as a distraction for the mind to focus, gives it something to focus on, distracting it from its thinking mind, right? The monkey mind, we call it. So now I'm focusing on, are my fingers out like this? I need to bring them together. Should the thumb be here, or should it be out there? Am I rotating right? What's my breath doing? There's all these subtle things that I'm thinking about as I'm doing the motion. And that gives me something to focus on. It also opens up some of the channels through the body, whether you believe in nadis through the yogic Ayurvedic tradition, whether you believe in meridians through the Chinese medicine tradition, or whether you just believe that, I have fascia that runs through here, and I have nerves, and I have arteries and lymph, and by me doing this, I'm flushing the lymph system, I'm opening and massaging the fascia, I'm enlivening the body just through that motion, right? So it's both a healthy motion activity. I'm massaging the body as I breathe, as well as a mental focus. It's a mental exercise in meditation. Hence it being a mind-body practice. It's very rich. So that's the intention here. I'm giving myself plenty of things to focus on, right? So I can focus just on this. My pinky's out of line. I need to bring my pinky in. I'm moving my thumb. What's my shoulder doing as I'm coming through here? Where's my breath? Is my knee out? Should it be forward? All these things I'm running in my head. So it gives it a nice focus, and while I'm noticing my breath. And that can open the channels and open the body, which then leads to its own healing process. So that's why we call it a moving meditation. So we're using our breath, we're using movement, and we're bringing focus of our mind to something in particular. That's so it's not just wandering and ruminating and what we call worrying, or the ruminating part of our thinking, which we know maps to a part of our brain called the default mode network. And the default mode network is here to protect us in millennia. It's always surveying for safety and threat. And that's why we ruminate and worry, because the mind is designed, that loop, that neural network, I should say, has been designed and engineered and refined for, is to predict or anticipate and recognize threat as quickly as possible. But how much threat do we have these days from a tiger? Not a lot of threat. So the acute threat is rare, unless you're walking the street and you can get mugged, right? That role serves us really well. But when you're lying in bed at 3 a.m. and can't sleep, it doesn't serve us so well. And that rumination is this default mode network, which gets more and more activated in some people. And by doing this sort of practice, it dampens, it reduces that default mode network, which is a network that's surveying, but actually pushes us into the future and in the past. So it creates worry, or we are worrying and ruminating on things that typically are in the future or in the past, because there's nothing to worry about in the present moment when you're lying in bed at 3 a.m. There's nothing going on. If there is an acute incident going on, car gets in the way, you're going to get a car accident, or you jump out in the street to cross and there's a car and you have to jump back, it serves us quite well. But on the chronic low-level threat that's non-existent that we create in our own mind, it's a disservice and causes disharmony. So these such of practices, whether it be yoga or this martial art practice, what we've demonstrated this evening, is really an opportunity for us to do both a mind and a body practice, to focus the mind on the body movement, to align our breath with the body, and in that yoking of breath and mind, yoking together, as some describe it as two fish that are really always together, like pairs, one without the other, almost like what we call yin and yang. They pair one another. And by focusing on breath, we calm mind and focus mind. By focusing on mind, we do the same with breath. And so we do that now through movement, through using the body as a vehicle, as a vessel, to massage that body, to massage that breath, to massage and align that mind. And that's what this yoking is what we're shooting for, and really improve our own vitality. Well, I appreciate everyone's time this evening. I hope this was helpful, a little bit of an introduction. And I invite you to be curious, to explore some of this on your own, to take what we've learned this evening and really just explore some of the simple aspects. Again, it's just a simple movement. This is the simple movement, that's it, right? That simple movement alone. We did that opening exercise, which really opens all the joints up. And the thinking behind that related to the joints is that the joints are typically an area we don't get a lot of nutritive value into. It's really hard for blood and for nutrients to get in and for toxic elements to leave. And so by squeezing, compressing and opening that we talked about earlier for the whole body, but particularly in the joints, by doing these rotations and opening and closing the joints, we can then allow that squeezing to happen and cleansing. So we end up compressing and opening, and really helps provide more nutrition into the joint and remove toxic elements out of the joint that could drain through the lymph system and then out through the body, through the lymph system where the immune system can actually manage stuff. And then it goes out to the areas where we detoxify, right? That can be through our breath, through the lung, we detoxify, through our skin, we detoxify, through our liver, we detoxify, and through our kidneys, we detoxify. And so that motion is really nice for opening up the joints. It really mechanically allows the ligaments to stretch and go to end of their range of motion and then back, as well as the tendons or the muscles that attach on. You have a muscle then that goes over the joint and attaches. And so when you're rotating that joint, you get the tendon stretch too. And that stretching, where you bring it to the end of range of motion and back, is really helpful for the whole muscle to actually engage. And then as you do that at a system level, you can see how it learns at the nervous system level then to coordinate all those muscle activities to really bring, again, vitality into the system. So that's really what that opening exercise was about. And then we brought in some specific exercises that we call that silk reeling practice. So thank you for your time this evening. I appreciate that. And we do this once a month, and feel free to come back. Once things settle down, we'll do it in person. We keep being asked when we can do this in person, and we will. We'll be hosting it at Cavallo Point Lodge, which is how we have always done it over the past 10 years up until COVID. But for now, we're doing it distantly. And on one hand, it's great. Now people from all over the country can participate, because I used to get many emails saying that wasn't an issue. On the other hand, it's nice to be in person. So at some point, we'll do a hybrid where those that are remote can participate virtually, and those that are local can come and play around in person and participate in community, which would be nice. So thanks for your time. I look forward to the next encounter. Take good care.